Hey guys, welcome back to Dreamland. It's been a while, right? I honestly thought I'd upload earlier this time. Also, you still hadn't told me if you liked my other Wangji and Wangzok. Don't be shy, just a few words from you mean so much to me. Your feedback really helps me see how I'm doing with my stories. If you're new here, don't forget to check out the previous part of this story so you can enjoy it better. Alright, let's dive right in. Wangji woke up about 40 minutes after being admitted to the hospital. When he opened his eyes, confusion filled him. The white ceiling, the faint smell of antiseptic. It took a moment before he realized he was lying on a hospital bed. He tried to recall what happened. He'd been standing at the bus stop waiting for his bus. It had just arrived. He'd taken one step forward to board, and suddenly all his energy drained out of him. His legs went weak, his blood turned to ice, and in the next heartbeat, everything went black. You're awake? A woman's voice cut through his foggy thoughts. He turned his head. A nurse, probably in her early 40s, was looking down at him with a kind smile. Wangji gave a slow, dull nod. Could you tell me who brought me here? She nodded cheerfully. Your husband. Wangji blinked, certain he'd misheard. No, he muttered under his breath. He can't be. The nurse tilted her head. Oh no, don't tell me you're unmarried and he's just taking advantage of the situation. Wangji sighed softly. How does he look? Well, she said with a dreamy smile. He's really handsome, and when he smiles, he looks even more handsome. He's polite too, very well mannered. Then it's not him, Wangji replied flatly. She chuckled. Even if he's taking advantage of you, you're not exactly at a loss. Before Wangji could respond, the door opened. Both turned their heads, and there stood Wang, followed by a doctor. The nurse smelled brightened instantly, but Wayne didn't return it. His expression was dark and unreadable. Wangji froze for a moment. It's really him. He hadn't accepted that. He didn't even know how Wayne found him, but still, he should thank him. Get in the car. Wayne snapped before Wangji could open his mouth. The driver's waiting outside. Wangji pressed his lips together, writing back the thank you that had nearly escaped. I don't have the whole day to waste on you, Wing added sharply, his tone like ice. Both the nurse and the doctor blinked in surprise. Just a while ago, Wing had looked genuinely worried when the doctor assured him Wangji's condition wasn't serious, just a case of low blood pressure. The doctor cleared his throat to break the tension. You need to take better care of yourself, he told Wangji gently. Eat proper food, no more skipping meals or living on instant noodles. Wangji barely heard him. His eyes were fixed on Wing, silent, simmering, unreadable. Then, without a word, he climbed out of bed and walked out, ignoring everyone. The driver met him in the hallway and reached out a hand to help him toward the car. But Wangji shook his head. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Inside, he was boiling. What's his problem? He thought bitterly. Can't he act normal for once? Put aside his hate for just one day? Does my face irritate him that much? Or is it because I'm not from his world? When Wing finally finished with the discharge formalities, he joined him in the car. The driver started the engine, carefully glancing in the rear view mirror, where he caught the sharp glare Wing was throwing at Wangji, who had chosen to pretend to be asleep the entire ride home. The moment they reached Women's and Wangji stepped out without saying a word, Wing followed immediately, slamming the door behind him. The driver exhaled softly and muttered to himself, the two are going to be the death of me. Wangji was in a hurry. He just wanted to freshen up and head to his studio. Resting at home wasn't a good idea. His thoughts only tangled more when he stayed still. But fate had something else in mind. He was halfway up the stairs when Wing's voice stopped him, sharp and commanding. Not a request, but an order. Wangji closed his eyes briefly, muttering under his breath, "Not again." He knew Wing wouldn't stop him to discuss the weather. For a fleeting moment, he considered ignoring him and continuing upstairs. But then he remembered it was Wing who had brought him to the hospital earlier. On the other hand, Wing's blood was boiling. Seeing Wang Ji hurrying off as if nothing had happened only fueled his anger. When Wang Ji didn't turn back, Wing strode toward him. Wang Ji felt him behind and turned, but before he could speak, Wing shoved his phone into his hands. "Watch this," Wing said through gritted teeth. Wang Ji blinked, startled, but caught the phone. The video playing on his screen made his heart drop. It was the earlier incident, his incident. People had recorded him clasping at the bus stand and posted it online with ridiculous caption. There were dozens of them spreading fast. His stomach twisted. Why would they even record that? And now he was all over the internet for something he never wanted anyone to see. Then came another jolt. One clip showed Wing carrying him to the car. His ears turned red instantly. He gave a quick sideways glance toward Wing, who was glaring daggers at him. Wangji was completely lost. He didn't understand why Wing was showing him this. What did he do wrong? Wing's patience snapped. He snatched the phone back from Wangji's hand. Wangji frowned, thinking, why is he angry? I'm the one who should be upset. I didn't ask to be filmed. He turned to leave, but Wing's voice stopped him cold. It must be very satisfying for you, Wing snapped. Wangji raised one eyebrow, calm as ever. What's so satisfying about seeing yourself all over the internet like this? Oh, sorry, Wing said mockingly. They didn't give you a warning about your appearance beforehand. Wangji stayed silent. That silence, that unshakable composure. That silence, that unshakable composure only enraged Wing more. He hated how Wangji never wrote to hit taunts, how every word he threw just bounced back to hit himself. When Wangji tried to walk away again, Wing moved to block the stairs. Wangji frowned. I don't have time for your stupid games. Move. You're the one who enjoys playing stupid games. This chaos is proof enough. He waved his phone between them. Oh, my apologies for fainting, Wangji replied flatly. Next time, I'll try to stay conscious. He didn't even bother asking how any of this was his fault. He'd learned that Wing could twist anything into a reason to blame him. Perhaps it's just a joke for you, Wing said, stepping closer, his voice low but burning. But not for us. We have a name in society, and what you've done today could tarnish our name. People are talking nonsense, saying we have been starving you, mistreating you just because you're from a poor family. Do you have any idea how humiliating that sounds? A story that shouldn't even exist, and all because of this little spectacle you caused. Wangji looked up at him, unreadable as ever. To Being that calmness felt like mockery. His anger depended not because of the gossip, but because Wangji seemed utterly untouched by it, as if none of it mattered. Wangji took a step back. And what does that have to do with me? He asked, his tone still calm. Seeing you run a big company, I assumed you were at least a reasonable person. As if I can control what others post online. The last part came out as a quiet mutter. But you can control your foolish actions. Wing's voice rose. The doctor said you've lost weight because you're barely eating, living on instant noodles, and I know you're doing it intentionally. No one here is starving you. It's not going to break us to feed one more person. Even nearly shouting now. So tell me, what are you trying to prove? If you despise luxury so much, you should have said no to this marriage. That would have helped everyone. Wangji stayed silent. Wing sneered. Well, who I am to talk? It's your father who has spoiled you beyond words. He should have retired by now. You should have taken responsibility, focused on your career instead of chasing childish dreams. But in this house, you can't live like that anymore. You'll be responsible for your actions. You're not just Lan Wangji now. You carry the V family name too. And our family won't suffer just because your father failed to reach you properly. He turned, accepting silence as usual. But this time Wangji spoke. His voice was calm, but there was a still beneath it. I would have said no to this marriage, he said quietly, if I had known what kind of person you are and not been fooled by your father's lies. Wayne froze, spinning back around. Don't, don't you dare bring my father into this. I warned you before, and I'm warning you again. Think before you should think before talking about others. Wangji interrupted sharply, especially when you don't have the slightest idea about their life. And as far as I recall, it was you who dragged my father into this first. So if you can insult others, be ready to hear something in return. He took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Tell me, Wangji continued, voice low and controlled. Who gave you the right to insult my father, to question how he reached me, to judge my choices? You told me to stay away from you and everything you own, so do the same. Now they were face to face. For the first time, Wing didn't have a comeback. He stood frozen, unsure whether he was more shocked by Wangji's words or by the quiet fire in his eyes. But Wangji wasn't done yet. From now on, he said firmly, I won't tolerate any insult toward me or my father. It's not only you who trapped in this marriage, we both are. And you know as well as I do that our fathers planned this from their hearts. We can't just throw it all back at them and say they failed. His voice softened, though his eyes glistened. So I'm buying some time to tell them we're not meant for this. And in the meantime, I'd appreciate a little decency from you too. Don't make it harder for both of us than it already is. His voice broke slightly at the end. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Wing stood still, speechless. He wanted to deny it, but deep down he knew Wangji was right. Whatever kind of person Wangji was, that truth remained. Neither of them wanted this marriage. They were both trapped in something neither chose. The next morning, Wangji slept a little longer, perhaps because of the medicine he'd taken. He was in a hurry, sleeping on his shoes by the door when he suddenly heard his name. Once, then twice. He froze. That voice was unmistakable. Wings. Wangji slowly turned to find Madame Liu and Wings seated at the breakfast table. For a moment he thought he might have imagined it. But when their eyes met, he knew he hadn't. Wing had been debating whether to stop him or not, but looking at Wangji's pale face, he couldn't ignore the fact that skipping meals wasn't doing him any good. And since Wangji clearly wasn't the kind of man who joined them himself, someone had to make the first move. Join us, Wing said casually, though his tone left little room for argument. When Wangji didn't move, Wing added firmer this time. You don't really have a choice, unless you want a repeat of what happened yesterday. Wangji didn't want to, but he knew Wing was right. He couldn't keep skipping meals, and this was his home now, whether he liked it or not. So half-heartedly he joined them. He sat on Wing's left side, leaving one chair empty between them. Breakfast was simple, warm vegetable soup and toast. Wing never had much of an appetite in the morning, and Madame Liu was strict about her diet. A maid came to serve the food, quietly placing a bowl and plate before Wangji. The table was silent, painfully silent. Wangji thought it was absurd. They weren't on speaking terms, sure, but couldn't they at least talk to each other? Anything would be better than this awkward quiet. He ate quietly, finishing as quickly as he could, and got up. Before leaving, he gave a small polite glance toward Madame Liu, who seemed to be observing him. This time, though, he didn't repeat his mistake of greeting her, even if he wanted to. Wing, on the other hand, hadn't even looked up once. After telling Wangji to sit, he didn't spare him a single glance. His eyes stayed glued to his screen as if Wangji didn't exist. Later that night, Wangji returned home earlier than usual. He'd been out with Xianwang for work, who offered to drop him off. He decided not to head back to the studio and came straight home instead. At the dinner table, Madame Liu was surprised by what she saw. A stir-fried chicken, crispy pork pieces glazed in a glossy red sweet and sour sauce, pork and shrimp dumplings, and spring rolls. The menu looked completely out of place. These were dishes Madame Liu and Wing rarely touched. Too greasy, too heavy. Usually they only appeared when Mr. V was around, insisting they should eat properly or when they're celebrating something. So why were the cook serving them tonight? Had Madame Liu forgotten some special occasion? Yuhan, she called the maid. Is there something special today? I don't recall any celebration. The maid looked nervous. No, ma'am, you and sir didn't mention anything. But I thought since you've both been eating plain food for a while, a little change would be nice. Madame Liu smiled faintly. Oh, I see. I thought I'd forgotten something. Anyway, thank you. But I wonder who's going to finish all this. Oh, don't tell me you invited guests and forgot to inform me. Wing said dryly, because I'm not in the mood. Madame Liu rolled her eyes. No, I didn't. And you're never in the mood for any gathering. Wing gave a small shrug. That's because the people you invite either bore me with their business talk, which I already deal with all day, or spend hours gossiping about the latest trends in the fashion world. While serving dinner, Yuhan hesitantly asked, Sir, actually, Sir already arrived earlier today. Should I call him for dinner too? Wing paused for a moment, then nodded. He did want Wangji to eat with them, though he'd never admit it out loud. Yes, he said simply, call him. He just hoped Wangji wouldn't take a stubborn. After a short while, Wangji appeared and quietly took the same seat as in the morning, one chair away from Wing. He didn't say a word, but there was a faint contentment in his eyes. The dishes spread before him looked warm, rich, and comforting. After days of instant noodles and escaped meals, he couldn't help but feel excited. Real food after so long. He found it odd how they'd had only soup and toast for breakfast. It hadn't been enough to fill even half his stomach. Now the aroma of home-cooked dishes brought a flicker of warmth he hadn't felt in weeks. And for a brief moment he thought of his father, their tiny apartment, the cozy dinners after long dance practice, the way his father would laugh and tell him, You got the appetite of a lion, Wangji. But the warmth dimmed as quickly as it came. The irony of it all, he couldn't see his father now, not yet, not when he wasn't ready to tell him the truth and break his heart. His thoughts were interrupted when Madame Liu's voice broke the quiet. Johann put a few more pieces of chicken on Wing's plate. He needs to gain some weight. Wing looked up immediately, feigning offense. Excuse me, I'm perfectly healthy, some people, he said, giving her a look. Just don't understand that I'm naturally gifted and don't gain weight easily. Madame Liu rolled her eyes. Gifted? You mean stubborn? You should take better care of yourself instead of teaching me about my figure all the time. Their light flickering pulled a small, almost secret smile from Wangji. It was the first time in so long that it felt a little light-hearted. But then Madame Liu's attention shifted to him, and her tone, though not cruel, struck wrong. Wangji dear, you don't have to eat for the whole week in one sitting, she remarked lightly. You can always have more later. I'll tell them to cook extra for you next time. No need to be greedy and make yourself ill. For a moment Wangji froze, the warmth fading from his face. He had forgotten where he was, had forgotten that this wasn't his home, not really. Back home, his father used to teach him lovingly about his big appetite, especially after dance practice. Here, the same habit made him feel small, out of place. He didn't say anything. He took a few more awkward bites, then quietly placed his chopstick down. "I'm done," he said softly and left the table. Silence fell the moment he was gone. Wayne turned to his mother, his tone sharp. "What was that?" Madame Liu blinked. "What?" "That," he said again. "That was really bad, Mom. You shouldn't have said that." She sighed, waving it off. "Oh, please, I just stated the obvious." "You saw it too. He was eating like he hadn't seen food in days." "And what difference does it make if he eats a little more?" Wing shot back, his voice rising slightly. "It's his body. He can decide that for himself." Madame Liu stared at him, incredulous. "You're arguing with me for him now. Unbelievable. Should I assume your feelings for him have changed?" "Mom, it's not about him, and you know that." Wing said, frustration leaking through his tone. "It's about us, about how we're going to explain to father why Wangji is treated like an unwelcome guest in this house." Madame Liu opened her mouth to reply, but Wing continued louder this time. "It's about time we accept that he lives here. Even if we don't want him in our lives, we still owe him some respect in this house. He deserves basic decency at the very least." He pushed his chair back, standing abruptly. "And if you think that means I've changed or that I'm taking his side, fine. So be it. I'd rather be wrong for treating him like a human being than right for mistreating him." Without waiting for her response, Wing turned and left the table too. The dining hall fell silent again. The untouched dishes still steamed faintly on the table, each one now tasting a little heavier than before. Today the rain was coming down in heavy sheets. By the time Wangji reached home, he was drenched from head to toe. The way mansion didn't feel as unwelcoming to him as it once did, quite distant, cold. In recent days, something had changed. Wing no longer went out of his way to provoke him or throw careless insults. He didn't treat Wangji as though his mere existence jeopardized his place anymore. It wasn't warmth, not yet, but it wasn't hostility either. And for Wangji, that was enough to breathe a little easier. He was in unusually good spirits that day. When he got off the bus and realized he hadn't brought an umbrella, he simply sighed and smiled to himself. The rain was too heavy for rides to stop anyway, and the mansion wasn't far. If he ran, he'd make it before catching a chill, and truthfully, he didn't mind the rain. The rhythmic sound, the cool drops against his skin, it reminded him of simpler times of dancing barefoot in puddles when he was a boy. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Wing's living room was uncharacteristically loud and full of life. His friends had surprised him with a small get-together arranged by Sia. It had been ages since all of them were free at the same time. So instead of dining out, they decided to cook their own dinner, a chaotic, laughter-filled ritual they'd always shared. The group of seven, Wing, Sia, Songlen, Yuvin, Janhao, Hasang, and Sayu, were setting dishes on the table when the froze made motion. The front door opened, revealing Wangji standing in the entryway, completely soaked. For a moment, no one moved. They had all heard about the wedding but hadn't attended. Seeing Wangji now, tall, graceful, even in soaked clothes, his expression calm but unreadable, they instantly understood why Wang had agreed to marry him. On the other hand, Wangji hadn't accepted to see so many unfamiliar faces in the mansion. The cheerful noise, the smell of food, it all took him by surprise. Among them, he recognized one person, Songlan, who had greeted him kindly at the wedding. The rest were strangers. He hesitated near the door, unsure whether to greet them or simply retreat to his room. He didn't want to intrude. Before the awkward silence could stretch longer, one of them, Hassan, the most cheerful of the group, stepped forward with a bright smile. "Hi, I'm Hassan, Wing's friend," he said, extending his hand. "Sorry we missed your wedding. We didn't get much notice." Wangji accepted the handshake with a gentle smile. There's no need to apologize, he replied softly. That smile caught Wang off guard. Why is he smiling at Hosang like that? He thought irritably. He never smiles at me like that. I get glares and silence. And he gives Hosang this sweet look. Can't he give him a hard glare too? Cause he's one of my friends. Janhao, who had been watching, let out a low whistle. Oh my goodness, how handsome and sweet he is. Wing, you lucky bastard. Wing nearly choked on air. Lucky in what world? Janhao grinned wider. What? A little flirting never hurt anyone. He muttered under his breath, ignoring Wing's murderous look. Yuvin and Sanglan exchanged knowing glances and shook their heads. Janhao hadn't changed a bit. Wangji was still standing near the door when he felt a hand suddenly drop onto his shoulder. He turned sharply. It was Janhao again, excusing himself between Wangji and Hassan with a cocky smile. Hey, I don't need an introduction, Janhao said proudly. You've probably seen me before. I'm a model. People usually recognize me instantly. No one's immune to my charm. But when he caught sight of Wangji's sharp, cold glare, his confidence faltered. Slowly, awkwardly, he removed his hand from Wangji's shoulder and coughed. Right, I'm Janhao. He corrected, bowing slightly. I do modeling sometimes, ads and stuff. Before the tension could thicken, Hassan patted Janhao's head with a laugh. Technically, he's not a real model. He told Wanji in a mock whisper. He just poses for local brands so they can sell products. Every group needs a clown, right? That drew a small, genuine smile from Wangji, and Hassan beamed at the side. There, that's better, he said. But we've kept you standing here in wet clothes for too long. Go get changed and join us for dinner, alright? Wangji nodded politely and excused himself to his room. As soon as he was gone, Janhao smacked Hassan's arms. A clown, really? Hassan darted behind Wing for protection. Wing, tell him to stop. Both of you stop acting like children, Wing said dryly, pinching the bridge of his nose. You've been smirked. A little flirt, not going to harm anyone. Janhao crossed his arms and huffed. I'm just saying, anyone would be fooled by that face. No one would guess he's so arrogant. That made Wing's lips twitch into a smirk. Oh, you think he's arrogant? Janhao raised a brow. They are the same. You both act like saying two nice words cost a fortune. Honestly made for each other. Wing shot him a glare sharp enough to silence a crowd, but Janhao only grinned wider. See? That's exactly what I mean. If glares could kill, you two would be serving in the army, wiping out enemies side by side just by looking at them. The room erupted in laughter, everyone except Wing, who scolded at Janhao's smug face. And somewhere down the hall, changing into dry clothes, Wangji could still hear the laughter echoing faintly. The rain still hadn't stopped that night. It pattered against the mansion windows, steady and soft now. The earlier storm fading to a drizzle. Inside, laughter and conversation flowed easily around the dinner table. Wangji had joined them a few minutes ago, freshly changed, his damp hair pushed neatly back. He sat beside Hassan, who made sure he felt comfortable from the start. There was something familiar about Hassan's warm energy. It reminded Wangji a little of Xianwang. He found himself relaxing more than he accepted. He liked them, all of them. They were loud, teasing, unfiltered, but sincere. He noticed how often Sia leaned toward Wing, offering him spoonfuls of dishes he hadn't served himself. She seemed very close to him, always watching, always finding excuses to reach across. It didn't bother Wangji, not really. He had no claim over Wing's circle. The group dynamic was easy to read. Sayu, elegant and sharp-eyed, wasn't quite as taken with him as the others. She seemed tense, her glances flicking between Sia and Wing. and Wangji could sense the quiet protectiveness behind it. The rest were familiar with each other in the way only childhood friends could be, comfortable, teasing, unaware of how loud they'd become. Wing, for his part, was quietly surprised. He hadn't accepted Wangji to blend in this well, especially not with Hassan whispering something every few minutes that made Wangji smile. Sia noticed where Wing's eyes were drifting. A flicker of irritation crossed her face before she straightened in her seat and spoke suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. So, Wangji, she said brightly, I've noticed you're a really quiet person. The table went silent. Her sudden interest was almost comical, considering she'd spent the evening focused entirely on being. Wangji blinked once, unsure how to respond, and stayed quiet. Sia's smile tightened. Come on, don't be shy. You're part of this group now. Help us get to know you. What would you like to know? Wangji asked politely. She leaned forward, her voice light. Well, what do you do? I'm a dancer, Wangji replied, his tone simple yet proud. Sia laughed softly. No, I mean, what do you do for a living? I run a dance studio, he said. Her brows lifted slightly, an incredulous smile tagging her lips. Oh, really? You're still quite young. But now that money is not a problem for you, you can always study something else if you want. Her tone carried a sulky kind of condescension disguised as advice. Wangji made her gaze evenly. Who said money was ever a problem? I love dancing, that's why I majored in it. Oh please, Sia said with a dismissive laugh. That's just a hobby, isn't it? But, well, that's fine too. After all, you're settled now. What's wings is yours, right? The faint clink of silverware stopped. Everyone at the table froze, cautious eyes darting between the two. Wangji brow arched slightly. What do you mean? She waved her hand airily. Nothing, just saying he's one of the richest men alive. So you don't really have to worry about anything. Wangji leaned back, his tone cool but controlled. If you're implying I can sit around and depend on his money, no thank you. I built my life before him. I can build it again if I have to. The atmosphere shifted. Sia's practice smiled favored. Pride breathed. Still she kept her voice sweet, dripping with mock innocence. Oh my, so defensive. I didn't mean it that way. Her voice softened further. It's admirable, really. Your mother must have raised you to be so independent. Some mothers prefer teaching their children to marry well instead of work hard, you know? Wangji's jaw tightened, his tone lowering to something colder. She taught me to earn what I want, not marry into it. She tilted her head, feigning sympathy. Of course, still a little softness never hurts. Maybe she should have focused more on that. Junhao tried to laugh, attempting to lighten the mood. All right, let's not. But the look on Wangji's face silenced him. His expression was composed, but his eyes weren't. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, too quiet. Maybe your mother should have taught you not to belittle others, he said evenly, or at least to mind your own business. Jinhao's laughter died instantly. The table went still. Sia's face drained of color. A long, tense moment passed before she managed to speak again. She whispered, her voice trembling. That's really cruel. You didn't have to bring her into this. Wings frown depended, discomfort flickering in his eyes as Sia lip trembled. Sayu immediately moved to comfort her, murmuring softly. The mood had turned heavy, brittle. Wangji signed the rebate as quickly as it had risen. He hadn't wanted this scene. He rose quietly, intending to excuse himself. But before he could, Bing's voice cut through the air, cold and commanding. Before you leave, he said sharply, apologize to her. Wangji froze, his jaw clenching. He didn't trust himself to speak. He wanted to shout, "Are you blind?" Wanted to ask if Wings hadn't seen who had started it, who twisted every word, but he stayed silent, unwilling to ruin the reunion completely. The tension was thick enough already. Wing's voice grew harder. I said apologize. Songlan interjected quietly. Wangji didn't know enough. Wing cut him off, his eyes still locked on Wangji. That was totally unnecessary. You don't have to lose a mother to understand someone else's pain. I said you can't leave before you apologize. The silence stretched, sharp and suffocating. Wangji finally made Wing's gauge his expression unreadable. "Make me," he said quietly, but there was challenge in his tone, fire in his eyes. The words hit like a spark. Even Sia, pale and sick, and reached out to stop being. "No, it's fine," she murmured, her voice breaking. "Not everyone's sensitive about family. Some people just don't think before they speak." Hassan rolled his eyes and muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." Janhao, nearly holding his breath, leaned toward Yubin and whispered, "Told you, they're both the same. Fire and fire." Okay, that's it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this story. And could you do me a small favor? Tell me in the comments who's been enjoying this story from the very beginning, is just still waiting for the next part. I really love to know. Don't be shy, just drop a comment for me. Alright, bye for now and take care. See you next time.